SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena. Very good morning to you for more on the British Queen Elizabeth II's state funeral. Sophie, very good morning to you. Can you take us through the list of the leaders of Africa who will be attending?
Well, let's start with the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa, who is there. And we know that on many occasions or different times, the heads of state of South Africa did visit United Kingdom. And the relationship between the United Kingdom and South Africa are very strong economically and politically, even though at times there are tensions. If you recall the problem of the war in Iraq, where President Mbeki then differed with the then Prime Minister of Britain. And therefore, you know that it was expected that South Africa will be invited. Then you go to Lesotho. Lesotho, also the monarchy, the relationship with the family, the two grandsons, that is Harry and William, sharing different relationships. William, a friend to King Letsie, and also Harry, a friend to Morena Seiso Bereng Seiso. Then you go to East Africa. You have the current president of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, his first international visit. And this is important because, as you heard earlier on, that it was when Queen Elizabeth visited Kenya in 1952, with her husband, Prince Philip, where she got the news of the passing on of his father, King George. And the next day, she was a queen. And therefore, there's that standing relationship. And also, Kenya is a member of the Commonwealth. And therefore, it is befitting to invite Kenya. And we had a package earlier on where Saraki Mani is looking at this relationship. You have Nigeria. Nigeria is represented by its vice president. You know that this is the largest economy on the continent. And also, Nigeria is a member of the Commonwealth. Rwanda, because currently the president of Rwanda is the chair of the Commonwealth. He hosted the Commonwealth last year, the summit. And you know that Prince Philip was there to discuss and also to give support to members of Commonwealth on behalf of the Queen.
So you're talking about the Commonwealth of Nations, an organization of countries that were under colonial rule. Just in terms of the goodwill that has been extended to Prince Charles III, what sort of conversations and engagements do you think this new monarch will hold with this cohort of nations?
Well, you know that there's been a push for transformation of the Commonwealth. The Queen was the head of the Commonwealth. And now Prince Charles III, as the King, is going to be the head of the Commonwealth. But there are people who feel strong, or member countries want a better coordination and the role by members of the Commonwealth. And therefore, there are people who are proposing that there should be a position called the President of the Commonwealth, like you have with other organizations. And that person, at that time, a rotation system must be used. That he will have, or she will have, an opportunity to put the agenda of the Commonwealth in a year where you are holding the presidency. And you must have stronger powers to decide the agenda of the Commonwealth. Secondly, it is more ceremonial, the Commonwealth now, even though there's a strong bond. They want to make it even more strong in terms of ensuring that when you come to trade relations, you really come up with agreements that will be to the benefit of members of the Commonwealth. In other words, they are saying it cannot be that the head of state of the UK is really the main person who is directing the Commonwealth and the responsibilities of the Commonwealth. Now it remains to be seen whether under the new head of the Commonwealth, Prince Charles III, whether those changes, we are likely to see those changes under his leadership, or we can expect later when Prince William perhaps takes over, the changes might be easily implemented, because you'll be talking about a new generation, both in the former colonies, the populations there, and also in the United Kingdom, and the monarch also now in a different year and in a different age.
You know, African countries have lamented the failure by the Queen to come out clear in terms of the impact of colonialism on the continent. Do you think those who are criticizing the Queen are justified in their criticism?
Well, I think they are, because many people believe that she didn't go far enough. Yes, behind the scenes, we are told there were lots of interactions with different people in terms of making her views known on certain issues. For example, the apartheid system. The former High Commissioner of Lesotho, who visited the Queen when he was taking over, speaking to Rapeleng Khatebe in Lesotho, said that the Queen told him that she had a frosty relationship with Margaret Thatcher because she didn't agree to the apartheid system, because you'd recall that Lesotho was assisting those who were leaving South Africa, who were in exile in Lesotho, to cross the borders to go overseas. They were getting passports from Lesotho, and Lesotho played a prominent role in supporting the struggle in South Africa, and therefore Lesotho had to bear the brunt. And the Queen was fully aware that there was that incident, the Maseru massacre, where many Basotho perished because the then system was targeting the people who were in exile in Lesotho. It was in that context where she was indicating that she really doesn't agree with the system. But the issue here is going public, accepting and asking for forgiveness, perhaps even showing remorse by engaging in discussions on issues that are related to the repatriation of what was taken on the continent during colonial time, and also perhaps reparation.
So an unprecedented global broadcasting event as well, 4.1 billion people all over the world expected to tune in. Also, this funeral will be live streamed. Let's take a look at what's happening currently ahead of the funeral. The past 2 weeks we've been using massive, all over the world, massive file footage. But let's just ask our producers now to take us live to Westminster Abbey, where the funeral service will be taking place any moment now, 11 o'clock to be precise. What can we expect here, Sophie?
You can see dignitaries have started arriving an hour ago, and therefore it's now a countdown, 2 hours to the start of the official funeral. And among those dignitaries would include members of the Commonwealth, leaders of different countries in Europe, in Asia, in America, including the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden. And you'll also have the current Secretary of the Commonwealth, who will share responsibilities with the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Liz Truss, in reading some of the scripts. And also you will have the family. When the coffin leaves the Buckingham Palace, you'll leave the Windsor Castle, you'll see that you will have behind the carriage the children of the Queen. Here we are talking about King Charles III. You are talking about Prince Edward, Prince Andrew, Princess Anne, and the second line will be the grandchildren. Here you are talking about Prince William and also Prince Harry, who will be part of the second procession, and the relatives behind them. And there are many people who are expected to be part of this funeral service.
And of course, we've been reporting since this morning that President Cyril Ramaphosa will be amending his travel itinerary to come back home, and a bit of confusion there as to whether he is still attending the funeral. He is attending the funeral. Please clarify this for us. It's the UN General Assembly that he's not attending.
Yes, indeed, he is at the funeral. Yesterday we saw him and the International Relations Minister Naledi Pandor going to view the coffin of the Queen, like many other heads of state did yesterday, in between his tight program where he engaged with ministers that are responsible for energy supply and stakeholders. Even today, we are told that after the funeral, he will continue with those engagements until he leaves London and coming back to South Africa, where he is going to deal with this issue of load shedding. And we are now, it's not even that, it's blackout. I mean, really, stage 6 is horrible. It's affecting the economy. And therefore, he is not going to the United Nations or New York, where he was supposed to participate in events such as the one that deals with food security on the sideline or the margins of the UN, but also delivering the speech on Tuesday evening. Those responsibilities now have been handed over to Minister of International Relations. I think from here she will be flying back to United Nations or New York, where she will then lead the South African delegation to the UN. This is not the first time. There was a point where President Ramaphosa couldn't make it to the UN General Assembly, and the minister did represent South Africa. This is not new to her.
Of course, the hashtag Queen Funeral is trending on social media right now. Sophie, let's just speak to the footage, the live footage that's coming in right now from Westminster Abbey, where the funeral service is going to be taking place. You were talking about the carriage that will be transporting the body of the late Queen Elizabeth II. We're told it's the same carriage that carried through the streets of London the body of her dad, King George VI, in 1952.
Yes, indeed. It started with Queen Victoria. It also carried Queen Victoria's casket or the coffin, and then King George, and then of course now the Queen, but also the Westminster Abbey, a very historic institution where many events like funerals, weddings of the royal family members happened previously, and it is indeed a familiar sight. I mean, who can forget the wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan in that church?
Of course, we're speaking about a country here that has a new prime minister who had the fortitude to meet with the Queen, Prime Minister Liz Truss. What's the role of government in this process as we classify this funeral as a state funeral?
It is a state funeral. A state funeral is often, it is a must that the military takes over. You know that the Minister of Defense in that country will have to support the military in organizing this funeral. And also, the Prime Minister's office will have to support the office of the Queen in terms of what needs to happen. For example, you are expecting heads of state and government coming, and therefore you have to provide resources and facilities like how they travel to one point to the other. The issues of security, the government will have to be involved. So much as it is mainly the office of the head of state and the military, you also have the government playing a supportive role. That is why during the service, the Prime Minister, Liz Truss, will read some lines in the scriptures. And also the Secretary of the Commonwealth will do the same, because the Queen was the head of the Commonwealth. Those two ladies will be playing a very, very important role. And I think befitting, because you are sending off a leader, a woman leader, who led that country at the head of state level for quite a long time, even though most of the work is being done at government level by a prime minister. I mean, she was there. Britain has, London has had 15 prime ministers. She did soldier on, starting from when Churchill was the prime minister. And the final formal activity that she was engaged in was at Balmoral, where she was confirming the current Prime Minister, Liz Truss, and a day after she passed on.
International editor there, Sophie Mokoena, of course, setting the scene for that state funeral service that will be starting around 11 a.m. This morning. We'll take you there. Service conducted by the Very Reverend Dr. David Hoyle, MBE, Dean of Westminster Abbey. And the service will be sung by the choir of Westminster Abbey and the choir of the Chapel Royal St. James Palace. And of course, following that funeral, she will be buried alongside her husband, Prince Philip, at the King George the Sixth Memorial. That's where the same place where Meghan and Prince Harry